Thank you. With that, the inaugural session is in fact now over. We'll move on straight to our next session, which is a plenary session on opportunities and challenges for promoting, financing, and handholding of women enterprises. And I'll request everyone to kindly remain seated. We promise you ample time and opportunity for networking during the lunch break. We know we are running a little behind schedule and we apologize for that. But we promise you time for networking during the lunch break, which is right after this session. So it's just a very quick 45-minute session, a very interesting panel discussion coming up right in a few moments, and right after that we'll break for lunch where we will have time and opportunity for networking, ladies and gentlemen. Allow us a few moments to make the necessary arrangements on the dais, and I'll request everyone to please remain seated. Like I said, we will head straight to our next session, which is a plenary session, a panel discussion to be moderated by Ms. Ritu Singh, Associate Editor, CNBC TV 18. I'll request everyone to please kindly remain seated. I'm going to reiterate, we'll give you time and opportunity for networking. We are running behind schedule, and just to make up on that time, we will... Ms. Ritu Singh, Associate Editor with CNBC TV 18, and our panelists on stage. Joining us this afternoon, Ms. Padmaja Chunduru, MD and CEO of the National Securities Depository Limited, Mr. Arup Kumar, CGM at SIDBI, Mr. Prabhat, Labh, CEO at Grameen Foundation India, Mr. Jugal, Kataria, Senior President and Group Controller at Satin CreditCare Network Limited, and Ms. Bharti, Birla, Chief Technical Advisor, International Labour Organization. Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? We promise you time and opportunity for networking during the lunch break. We need to catch up with time. We are running a little, not even in fact a little, an hour late on schedule. We have to catch up on time. Please bear with us. I'll request everyone to please be seated. We are going to start our next session now, and we already have our speakers on the stage. So let's all now settle down. Can we all have a round of applause for all of them? Extend them a hearty welcome. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to you, Ms. Singh, to take it forward from here. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I apologize for taking into your tea break, but I hope we'll make it worth your while. So let me begin by thanking all of the panelists for being here. I'll start from there. Mr. Jugal Kataria from SIDBI, Mr. Arup Kumar from, Mr. Jugal Kataria from Satin CreditCare, Mr. Arup Kumar from SIDBI, Ms. Padmaja Chunduru from the NSTL, Mr. Prabhat Labh from the Grameen Foundation, and Ms. Bharti Birla from the International Labour Organization. I'll just start by, taking up a little of your time to give you a few statistics to set the context, and I hope you can take away some from here. The World Economic Forum Gender Gap Report. This is the number you need to watch out for. We keep talking about equality between men and women. It finds it will take 268 years to achieve parity between men and women when it comes to economic opportunities. That is the number that we have to grapple with. And India ranks just 135 out of 146 countries on this gender gap report. Now we're focusing on the economic issues here, and we're not just talking about equality between men and women as a social issue. It makes economic sense too, from the economic health point of view as well. If more and more women are brought into the labor force, there are several studies that find that the GDPs of the countries can significantly benefit. We have 73 million MSMEs in the country, about 20% of them owned from women. They're expected to generate around 150 to 170 million jobs, and that is why you need to focus on the importance of bringing in women in the financial fold and handholding these entrepreneurs to make sure that their entrepreneurship journey is supported. On that note, let me start with you, Ms. Chunduru, since you're one of the ladies on the panel. How do you assess the current state of women entrepreneurship in the country? We have 15 million MSMEs, but hardly 70% of them have not been able to get formal financing, one of the key ingredients to be a successful entrepreneur.
Thank you. Thank you, Sa-Dhan, for this opportunity. This is a very a subject very close to my heart, not only as a bank, erstwhile banker, now in the capital markets, but also as a woman, and trying to, see how to bring more and more women into the formal sector. This we did through self-help groups and all in the banks. But I agree, Ritu has given the data. There are even the numbers that are given here, that 7% of women are entrepreneurs are women, or 20% of the MSMEs are headed by women or founded by them. How many are really being led by them and run by them, operated by them is a question. I think that we all need to really look at the field to get the answers. Because in a bank, when you call the borrower to sign the documents or to take the loan, it's usually the woman is always and invariably always accompanied by her spouse, brother, father, whoever. And mostly it is because there is a subsidy, there is an interest rate, a discount, whatever, that women name is there. You saw I think it was Prime or Netflix, the Panchayat serial, I think it was something like that. So we would always encourage them to take better. But there are too many social and, stereotyping and other challenges. Even women's own self-expectations or self-awareness or even financial awareness. I think there are a lot of hurdles to cross still. All of us are talking, we know what to do, but actually the last mile, bringing them out of that cocoon is not an easy job, and it is for women also that awareness we need to create, which we are trying both from the bank side and now through the NSDL side.
Well, thank you for those thoughts. And Panchayat is certainly a great example of what is actually happening out there on the ground. Mr. Labh, you work at the Grameen Foundation with plenty of women entrepreneurs. We know finance is a challenge, but what have been some of your observations over the years? Beyond, of course, at the grassroots level, we see some challenges when it comes to women getting the support they need to come up as entrepreneurs. But, what have been the key findings in terms of challenges?
Thanks, Ritu. I hope I'm audible. First of all, I'm very, very encouraged that there are at least 70, 80 people who are interested in this topic of women-owned and women-led businesses, and we must clap, for the audience, sitting here in this room. Absolutely, thrilled about that aspect.
Sacrificing their coffees.
Absolutely, I know, yes, absolutely. We work, on, different models of entrepreneurship. One of which is, we call a Grameen Mitra model, which is an educated woman from rural areas who we identify and train as a local BC, a business correspondent agent, who brings a range of financial and non-financial services for the community in the village. And this network currently is around 2,200 strong, spread across four states, 16 districts. And as we we were doing this program, we discovered that there's a huge entrepreneurial talent in the villages amongst the women, that we have. Also, like for recruiting these Grameen Mitras, our basic requirement was that she should be at least 8th pass in terms of education, and she should be able to operate a smartphone. That's the only two requirement. Now today, if you look at our data of these 2,200 women, 1/3 of them are either graduates or postgraduates. Now that tells us something, that there's a huge number of really well-qualified, educated women in our rural areas who, given a right opportunity and a little bit of hand-holding, can actually come out and become successful entrepreneurs. That's the kind of untapped potential we have out there. And we, of course, as Grameen, are a small organization, are trying to tap into that opportunity. But there's just so much that can be done. And in fact, every time you look at any data point with regard to gender equality, it kind of disappoints you. Even today, we saw that among Sa-Dhan members, the report, that only 14% of the workforce in these microfinance institutions like women, whereas this industry caters to between 95 to 98% of their customers are women. And so imagine, a woman entrepreneur who, wants to access a loan from, let's say, a microfinance institution or bank, goes to a bank, and the people that she deals with at every stage of her journey is often a man. And so there's a lot of, inhibitions and barriers that she's first facing at her home itself before she can even come out of the home. And once she has that courage and confidence to come out and go and talk to people, then it's very difficult for her to find a role model. It's very difficult for her to find, the people who will believe in her, trust in her, and not discourage her. So those are kind of multiple things. And so, we as Grameen Foundation, of course, are not looking at, we have the financial institutions who kind of look at financing, but we look at aspects other than financing. Like, how do you kind of, remove the barriers which come in her way? How do you kind of build her own skill and confidence and self-belief in herself? How do you make sure that, her aspirations and dreams are not killed, but she's given an opportunity to kind of work on fulfilling those dreams? I'll use just two small examples. Also, we work with a number of farmer produce organizations, which are like business organizations. And you look at the membership in these farmer produce organizations, we know that the agriculture sector accounts for over 50% of employment and over 17-18% of GDP in the country. And yet, if you look at the proportion of women in these farmer producer organizations, it's abysmal. It's like 10%, 8%, 12%. That's the status. Whereas we know that it's women who are working on the farms. So again, you're finding that a new set of institution is being created. Government is supporting creation of 10,000 such FPOs, and yet without paying attention to the fact that they also need to represent the diversity of the workforce that we have in the country, people who work on the farm. In Delhi, right now we are kind of going to work on a small program which is about enabling women-owned businesses for growth and opportunity, in which we are looking at how do you kind of, make sure that women are able to, not only, dream about something, but, have the opportunity to pursue their dreams through right kind of, hand-holding, skill development opportunities, access to digital technology on digital platforms. How do you kind of, help them to connect to their customers and to, markets? And of course, financing becomes a key role for which we are talking to various financial institutions about how they can kind of look at, say risk assessment and, appraisal of these enterprises so that they do not suffer from the traditional biases that these women have to face at various stages normally. So those are kind of some objectives we are working on. Thank you, Ritu.
Well, lots of interesting facts there, and thank you for sharing those. I mean, they're looking at the data set of women to employ, where you just need an 8th pass woman, and what you're finding is a third of them are graduates and yet not finding jobs. That should be startling enough. But we have traversed a distance, if not enough, but we have. Bharti, your thoughts, on the trajectory of women entrepreneurship in India, some sort of an improvement, especially over the last few years as digitization has picked up, as mobile ownership, as internet penetration, that has improved?
Well, it has, but then there are also a lot of barriers that we see. I mean, if you look at the data which has been done by the ILO, and there has been a survey which was done in all the 187 countries looking at women and women's participation in the workforce and in employment. What we really found that, the number of women that are in the workforce are very less compared to men. So only 1.4 billion women are in work, whereas around 2 billion are men. And the question is why there is this difference. Is this education? Is this skills? What is the real reason for this gap in the labor force participation rate? And what we really find is that there are plethora of factors that are responsible, and education is important, but it is not really the key factor. And one of the key factors is the care work or the unpaid care work, because most of the economies do not have public provision of care. And if you look at how much time men and women spend on care, it's around 4 hours and 35 minutes for women across the world, and around 1 hour 23 minutes for men. And the question is, if women are freed from the care work and if we have public provision of care, the care jobs itself will be able to allow 300 million jobs to be created by 2035, and many of these jobs would also be in the formal sector. The other question is that when we talk about women and entrepreneurship, gender and entrepreneurship, most of the programs actually look at entrepreneurship just like that, without really getting into the challenges and the barriers that women face, not just from the, access to finance, which becomes one of the critical things, but within their own homes, how to make decisions, how to negotiate, how to come out. Just to give you an example, we've been working with small home-based workers and women entrepreneurs who want to formalize, who want to get to the next level of entrepreneurship in India, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. And these women needed business literacy, of course, but they also needed financial literacy. And what we did was have a specific program called Get Ahead, which looks at gender and entrepreneurship together. How do we bring gender into the entrepreneurship and look at the barriers that women face within their homes in terms of decision making, in terms of negotiating, in terms of building networks, which is, I think, very critical for businesses. And all these need to be done together at one go. Another example is that how do Women Entrepreneurs Association helps these small and emerging micro entrepreneurs. In Nepal, for example, we worked with the Federation of Women Entrepreneurs, which provided hand-holding support and coaching support. Whenever we are talking about access to finance, the question is, will the banks or will the financial institutions give them loan? You know, where is the credibility? And using these employers' federations, especially women's federations, we have a tool called Encompass, which certifies these micro entrepreneurs and then gives them some credit worth so that microfinance institutions or banks can actually extend them loans by setting up special help desks and special services that can be extended to women. So the landscape is changing, but it's a long way to go.
Well, you highlighted finance, and that is one of the key hindrances. So let me zoom in on that and bring in the lenders on it. Mr. Kataria, you at Satin CreditCare look at microloans in a big way. I just wanted to understand, over the last few years, and we have data, if women want a 100 rupee loan, they're only able to get, say, 30 rupees from the formal system. That 70 rupees is still unmet, 70% is still unmet. Are lenders still hesitating when it comes to giving loans to women entrepreneurs? And I want you to speak for the industry, not just at Satin CreditCare, because there is facts to prove that women are better borrowers.
So I think everybody present in the room will agree that microfinance institutions are not hesitant to provide loans to people at the bottom, the very low ticket size. While in general, yes, there is apprehension of giving money to small businesses. Even it is challenging for men to borrow small amount of loans, but it is more challenging for women, except microfinance institutions, which are primarily giving money to women borrowers. In general, it is difficult, and here also, very small amount of money is given to these customers. The average ticket size is about 40,000 rupees. Average indebtedness of a borrower is close to about 50 to 60,000 rupees. But when it comes to borrowing larger amount of money, it is still challenging. And then there are things evolving. People are exploring, individual lending model, both secured and unsecured. In terms of the overall quantum, the industry has come a long way in the last 10 years or so. Post-Andhra crisis in March 2012, the overall size of the industry was close to about 17,000 crore. And then today we are talking about overall 3 lakh crore. NBFC, MFIs itself are serving close to about 2.7 crore people, giving over 1 lakh crore of money. So things are improving in general. There's flow of money, both equity and debt to the sector. NBFC, MFIs have proved that this is the self-sustaining model of people to serve people at the bottom. So things are improving, no doubt. But yes, in case one has to borrow slightly larger ticket money beyond microfinance and up to 10 lakh rupees, there's still challenging to raise money for everybody.
Before I move on to Mr. Kumar, Mr. Kataria, the new overhauled MFI regulations that we just heard the Reserve Bank of India ED speak about, overall, what do you think the impact of these new rules is going to be on women borrowers? The limit has been increased, the rural-urban divide has been equated. Do you think the focus is to some extent going to shift away from women borrowers towards individual male borrowers?
So no doubt the horizon of the sector has increased, the overall universe has increased. Earlier we were talking about 1.25 lakh household income at the rural level and 2 lakh rupees at the urban level. Now it is 3 lakh rupees. So no doubt the overall size of the universe has increased. But the new regulations have brought in some more changes, and now we are talking about the household level indebtedness, because of which 7-8% of the rejection at credit bureau levels have increased. But we are giving right money to the right people. We educate when we give money to the borrowers. We educate them that they should not over borrow. They should borrow whatever is required. So these new regulations are going in that direction, and so yes, things are going in the right direction.
Sure, but the question is on the impact on women borrowers. Do you think the focus shifts away?
I don't think, because our own experience of dealing with women borrowers is they are better repayment behavior than the males have. So I don't think that the focus is going to shift from women to men. But we'll continue to keep serving them, while males will also start getting some more money because of the new regulation, but there'll be more focus on women borrowers.
Okay, let's hope that is the case. Mr. Arup Kumar, let me bring you in as well and talk about some of these schemes that have tried to focus on women borrowers, and one of them is the Mudra scheme. The bulk of the beneficiaries when it comes to sanctions and disbursements have been women, more than 50% of them, and in terms of the accounts opened as well. But I wanted to understand the amount that is being borrowed by women is still in the Shishu category, and we're talking about loans of less than 50,000 rupees. 88% of the loans availed by women are in that category. Why do you think that is the case when it comes to larger loans? Are lenders still hesitant at some level, or why is the reason that we're not seeking them take larger sizes of loans?
Thank you. Before talking about that, I would just touch what Mr. Kataria said to your question. See, the MFIs for the last 20 years, what has happened in the country, which is a big thing to happen, that these many women borrowers have come and have built their credit record. Every lender in this category is now comfortable, and so the natural graduation is going to happen out of this set. So the apprehension you expressed about that maybe with this new regulation, maybe women would not get the pie, larger pie or equal pie, it's not going to happen, because they are going to see them only for the graduating loan they are going to give for the higher ones. So women are going to get benefited. That is the point I felt like adding to what Mr. Jugal said. To the point you said, if you see the landscape, the lending landscape, if you see, is sub 20,000, 20 to 50,000, 50 to 5 lakh, 5 lakh to 10 lakh, and thereafter. The Shishu category, if you see from MFI side also, the women participation in this loan brackets is the lowest one, almost 100%, nearer to 100% participation of women. As you move up, it is getting less. Maybe 45, 50,000 loans, maybe it's to 98%. SIDBI, you might be aware of the scheme which we have been trying for the last almost 3 years plus. That is for missing middle, 5 lakh to 50,000 to 5 lakh. The loan we are giving directly through partners, there the participation is 80%. So as you move up, this is going down, and this is the correct observation. Why? There are so many other indicators, what other panelists said. Apart from that, the basic concept of microfinance is the comfort lenders derive out of group support. As you move up, it becomes individual loans. So that is really risky from a lender's perspective also, for enterprise owner perspective also. A person who is moving out of group to individual, the person is really not good enough to withstand all the forces.
So
in a manner.
Credit worthiness reduces. Is that what the credit worthiness of the borrowers reducing as they're going up?
That is reducing, and so all these things are being then taken care of through other means, like what others Grameen is also trying to do. In our program, in Prayas, for example, what we are trying to do, we are trying to make access of credit is one, because again, from a different perspective, you see lenders' participation in this loan segment, 5 lakh to 50,000 to 5 lakh, there is very nil presence. Because no one is willing to give to this segment for this very reason. It's not only for women, it's for men also, you would see. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to create an ecosystem, the way we thought of creating for MFI sector 20, 25 years back. When SIG Bank Linkage Program, just to give a context, I will take a minute or two on this. When SIG Bank Linkage Program was spearheaded in early 90s, and NABARD took it further, SIDBI as an apex institution for MSME. See, in the country, there are large industries and there are agri. Apart from that, everything is MSME, micro, small, and medium. And we are apex institution for that to take care of the entire gamut of that. So we felt that time that bank branches, because SIG Bank Linkage Program is through bank branches, that time around 68,000 bank branches were there, were not going to take care of this vast country. So we felt the need for having micro banks, and that we started working with the NGOs, hand-holding them, nudging them to become micro bank by giving all capacity building support, equity support, transformation loans, and we thought of becoming enablers so that other lenders and investors also start. So what in one of the inaugural session you would have observed, someone said that by the end of the century, all of a sudden microfinance lending happened. It started happening in a bigger way. That SFMC of SIDBI Foundation for Microcredit got founded in the year 2000. In late 90s, we started working with the NGOs towards that, but then at the same time, it was not just MFI. It was for the entire ecosystem we tried working. The credit rating or grading agents exercises, the other support services, so that there is an orderly growth in this sector. This is what, as an institution, our approach has been, and which, as Apex institution, DFI, we are trying to do, that what can be done for 50,000 to 5 lakh under PRORAS program. Now, access to credit, we are trying to make partners, not only MFIs, even NBFCs, even corporates. You would be surprised to know Big Basket, Urban Clap, they are also having, if you see, this category is there in value chain of all these sectors, corporates. So we are trying to cover all of them, one, towards facilitating flow of credit, then affordable credit. We are trying to master, I would say, the model, delivery model. There are three components: cost of fund, operating cost, and third is credit cost. Operating cost, we all know. It has gone down from 12 to 6. Yeah, it's high for this sector because of, average ticket size itself is too less. So it is bound to be higher than corporate loans. But at the same time, it has gone down with the efficiency of the system, digitization, and the system has evolved. All these MFIs, they have fine-tuned their processes. So now it is down from 12% to 6.5%, which Sa-Dhan report also talked about. Now this has come, the operating cost has come. The cost of fund, we are also a lender. Majority of the banks and NBFCs, they are also lender. We are trying to reduce that also. You would have seen during COVID time, it has gone down, the report says. We intend to make it further down. That is a separate topic of discussion, which way we are trying to link it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, third component, credit cost, there we are trying to bring some models. Like in the past, some credit rating models were there. Today also, there is a IIT Kanpur Incubity, Arthvedika company is there. They are trying to build a model using IIT Kanpur professors using on
steps are being taken to
So we are
assess.
trying to strengthen the ecosystem
Yeah.
where the lenders would be comfortable in giving loans.
Yeah.
So today it's not happening, but tomorrow it would happen.
Well, we certainly hope so. Mr. Labh, you wanted to come in on this as well, on your assessment of how these schemes have played out.
No, absolutely. I mean, just to add to the points that Mr. Arup made with regard to the fact that, while at the entry level, smallest loan category, you have, very good, representation of women. As you move up in the larger loan, that proportion comes down, and we have to really see what could be the reasons. So it's if loans are going out in the Tarun and, Kishore category, why the proportion of women is coming down. So I think this is about women-led enterprise. When we talk about enterprise needs much more than loan. Besides loan, they need, inputs on how, on enterprise management and enterprise growth opportunity. Also, as you kind of, grow from, say, 25,000, 50,000 rupees kind of enterprise to a 5 lakh, 10 lakh rupees of kind of enterprise, You also need to move towards formalization, which comes with its own set of complexities. Now, the challenge is, how do you kind of make it easier for women entrepreneurs so that they can face these challenges, move towards formalization, or even, and there's one more very important shift happening for which the industry needs to prepare itself, which is, as Mr. Arup was mentioning, move away from, say, group-based lending to individual-based lending. And we do not really have good models for individual-based lending. We do have serious challenges there. A lot of fintechs are trying to build alternative, algorithm-based credit scoring model. And we also know from research around the world how these, algorithms can have their own inherent biases, which may further disadvantage women. We also know that there's a digital divide in the country, that, women's ownership and usage of a smartphone and internet, there's a massive digital divide out there. So which means that if digital becomes your means to do individual lending, then you carry the same biases into the lending space as well. So one, how do you, remove these biases? Two, how do you kind of, innovate for a new world order, which is driven by digital and, which has to kind of move towards individual lending? And three, how do you bring in additional support services so that women who are already there, in the issue loan category, kind of can graduate and move on to the next larger enterprises?
Well, digital is hailed as the great equalizer. So, that is, of course, an important point to consider. And data is what lenders need to ensure that, their risk worthiness of the borrower is able to be assessed better. But Ms. Chunduru, let me come back to the fact that for empowerment, we're also looking at bank accounts, and the Jan-Dhan scheme, no doubt about it, has made great strides there. Majority of the accounts, again here, have been opened by women, but, the problem being faced now is what is happening in those accounts. Almost a third of them are inactive. When we talk about savings, when we talk about insurance, not much happening on that end either.
Yeah, I think Jan-Dhan accounts, I still feel, out of the 40 crore or so accounts opened during that 1.5, 2 years time under that Jan-Dhan mission, more than 50% were women, opened in the name of women and actually operated by women. I don't say 100% of their accounts were operated, but I think there the success was much higher. That was because it was a simple product. There was doorstep delivery, almost these BCs and all handheld devices. They went and did the banking services for the women there. So I think that is still a success story which can be replicated across sectors now. Now, Jan-Dhan talked of, this Aadhaar mobile and the savings account. I think the more fundamental thing I would call is the triple M for women. I think it is money, that is, they must be earning. Economic independence, even if it improves the profile of the woman in the house, the status she enjoys, the decision making she enjoys. The other one is mobile. We already saw the statistics on how women must be using mobile, but mostly maybe streaming services or some WhatsApp or whatever. But I think there is much more to a mobile than just that. Then and internet, how do you access regional languages? There is so much that is being done, but much more. The third M, I think, is mobility. This is where I think we have still not, we are doing everything doorstep, but where is the woman coming out of the house? There was that video slide Mr. Jayant Sinha showed about show me the money. I thought, show me the women. No, where are the women in the environment? Where are they in the ecosystem? Whether it is companies, people heading companies, CEOs, CXOs, board members. Where are the women? There are very few role models in the economy today. You have to really search out. I think that is important. You need to get them out of the house, and for that, it is the women who need to be empowered. And awareness, whether it is financial awareness. From the capital markets, I can see hardly 15% of the demat accounts today, whether in NSDL or CSDL, overall in the market, is only 15% are held by women. That means equity investments, which is just a shade above banking accounts. Women are not there. The decision making, the perception of risk, I feel, just one thing I want to say, I feel women are the biggest risk takers in the system. Whether it is, when you get married and go to a new ecosystem altogether, you have this childbirth and all that. You have uncertainties every day. All these women can handle, but they can't handle money and decisions around money. I can't believe that. I think it's that empowerment. I'll come back to what we are doing from NSDL side. We run a program called This is more for the MFIs and Sa-Dhan also. I would like to collaborate with all these MFIs to take it forward. We have started a program called Market Ka Ekalavya. This is about financial awareness, a very disorganized, very simple model, online program, about 3 hours. You know, it just says what is what. What is banking, what is saving, what is investment, what is equity, what is mutual fund, and all that in all the regional languages, almost all, I think 10 regional languages. So we do it online, NSDL sponsors it in collaboration with others. We are doing it for students now, but my next mission is to do it for housewives and for these self-help groups and all, women. So I think I would look forward to, collaboration with all of you on that. Thanks.
You know, since we have you here, before you, end that answer, you're looking at NSDL, right? And then the last 2 years, with the kind of money going into the markets, we've been seeing how retail investors, are at their peak in the markets. What is the kind of representation from women there?
I think it's improving, especially the millennials, the new age, the new gen. I think the risk-taking and also the decision-making, we are seeing a change, though I would want to see it much faster. Entrepreneurs, I think when I go to these startup events and all, you find a lot of women entrepreneurs, Bangalore, Delhi, Pune. You go, you see them. And there is a lot of, much more confidence, much more funds coming from abroad. I think that is one thing the MFIs also have to focus on. There are a lot of such impact funding that is coming, whether from World Bank or other multilateral institutions. There are products we can customize to make ourselves eligible for that. And ILO must be working on these things. I think there is a lot more that can be done on that space. But there's a lot of hand-holding to be done and more psychological or social awareness, which I think is our responsibility as,
No, representation definitely matters. When you see role models, you're encouraged more and more. And I think the number you said earlier was 14% of the DMAT accounts are today owned and operated by women. So there is greater participation, but of course we need to see a lot more. Bharti, if I could bring you back into the conversation. You were speaking about the care economy earlier and how that could help create about 300 million jobs or so. Where are the loopholes in the system? And we understand the ILO is also working very closely with the Niti Aayog, where you're looking to plug those in, improve these labor laws for greater women participation in the economic force.
Yes, as I mentioned that, a lot of women spend huge time in the care economy, taking care of the elderly, the children, and the household work. And the question is, how do we free the women from there? Most of the gender laws or labor laws are also stereotypical. For example, if you look at earlier the construction sector law, it said that you need to have creches where 50 or more women work. The question is, do men not have children? So most of our laws are like the way we try to help women. Also, there is an element of stereotyping that happens. And the question is, how do we remove those barriers? One of the things that we've also seen, in order for the women to actually participate in the economy, we need to make them free. The second is, how do the men and women perceive about jobs and employment? What we have seen is that generally it is believed, it's a myth, that women don't want to work, that there are jobs and women don't want to work, and that's not really true. What we really find is that there are a huge number of women who are graduates and they don't have jobs which are optimum to the skill level that they have. So the question is, how do we involve them? And then there are millions and millions of invisible and hidden workforce, which is women in the informal economy, not just in the domestic supply chains, but in the very large global supply chains where women work in their homes and they're totally invisible in the workforce. Many of these women want to come up, they want to become entrepreneurs. They're part of self-help groups, but then many of them are also excluded because of range of factors related to their intersectionality. Many of them are migrants. They migrate. So the husband might be working in a factory, but they're working in their own homes. Now, they're not part of the groups which are there of the local workers. Now, how do we include these migrant women? How do we include women with disabilities into these groups? And do these groups have enough business training, enough financial understanding on how to take it forward? And the question that, from self-help groups to micro-entrepreneurs, how to make that jump? because many of these micro entrepreneurs need to create sustainable enterprises, and that's where the gap happens, because to become a micro entrepreneur, you need coaching support, you need peer learning, you need a hand-holding support. Most of the women workers would actually become competitors in that process, but then how to manage that competition, how to take care of the market forces, COVID-19 pandemic, distress situations, how to do business continuity planning in those circumstances. Unfortunately, women are not able to access all these trainings and services, though they do exist, and a lot of them do exist, but the question is how do we connect them? And for that, as I mentioned, our experience is that women entrepreneurs can actually handhold other smaller micro women entrepreneurs, and that becomes quite successful. Just to give you example, in Nepal, we actually formalized 200 women-led micro enterprises who were home-based workers turned entrepreneurs, turned micro entrepreneurs, and now formalized with the help of women-led associations. And I think that's where we need that jump. That's where we can actually create more opportunities for women. And the other program that I want to talk about, which actually came in very handy, was this Get Ahead program of the ILO, which looks at gender and entrepreneurship together, which looks at the challenges that women face, not just in the business environment, but also within their own homes, within their own communities. If they get a loan, who actually handles the loan? Who decides where the loan needs to be used, whether it needs to be reinvested or not? So all those things, I think, are important when we're looking at women, financial inclusion, microfinance, and then jumping to become a micro-entrepreneur where they are actually taking up loans from the banks, and how do banks support that? So I mentioned this tool called Encompass, which is supported by Employers Association. They sort of certify that these women entrepreneurs are credit worthy and can get bank loans, and can the bank loans be given at a reduced interest rate. Yeah. So these are some of the things that can help. And
I'll put that question to the lender. Mr. Kataria, if you'd like to come in as well. How are you putting the gender lens on the products you're rolling out for women? More female-focused loan products, and what's been the experience so far?
So the entire microfinance industry, I would say almost 99% plus is giving money to the women entrepreneurs. And our overall experience is very good, barring some black swan event. As Mr. Vaidyanathan was mentioning, that over a period of 20 years, the credit cost is less than 1% a year, even if it is unsecured loan without any collateral, etc., to first-time borrowers in the remotest area of the country. The overall experience of giving small ticket loan to people at the bottom has been very good. We have joint liability, but that's hardly required. Most of the time people are able to pay their loan of their own. The challenge is to borrow slightly larger ticket loan when it comes to going to 1 lakh rupees to so that's the challenge, but at the bottom, I think it's not an issue.
Mr. Kumar, if you'd also like to weigh in, there are unique challenges, there are unique aspects of lending to women, and Bharti outlined some of the challenges right from home up to where you become a micro-entrepreneur and grow larger. How are these products catered to the specific needs of women?
So, if you talk about microfinance, primarily it is women only. So, rather if you say, had there been no women, probably this microfinance would not have survived. That is a biggest statement, but then this is a true statement. But at the same time, if you talk about schemes coming from government and institutions which are women specific, way back, if you see in 90s, there was Mahila Udyam Nidhi, which was intended to take care of some equity type of support also apart from loans. Mahila Vikas Nidhi, that was there. In recent times, all of us would remember a Stand Up India program of Government of India, where government mandated that every bank branch must give one loan to women and one to SC/ST community. So all these scheme-wise things have been happening. But the point you are saying, I fully agree with you, show me the money, show me the women. These two things, how do we put together in our country? Now, for that credit worthiness, how do we improve for the graduating ones? I see two segments clearly a challenge. Although we are talking about the upper segment, there is a nano segment also. 20, 25 years back, the loans which were given to all these women, that time 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. Today, all MFIs, they have graduated, they don't feel very comfortable in giving loans less than 20,000. All those MFIs, micro borrowers of that time, they have also grown, they also want to grow further. But at the same time, there is a big segment still needing loans of 5 to 10,000 or 15,000, sub 20K. That we call nano finance, and we are trying to work on that. So access of credit to that segment is one, which if we create some organizations like we worked with the then MFIs, we should be able to achieve. Second is the graduation, the upper one. How do we achieve that where we are able to give them the loans, where show the money and that also is there. How do we get the comfort of all the lenders that they start considering them that individual loans also in this range to be given. And that is what I was elaborating on. There are many we are trying to work on, and one we have recently zeroed in, I was talking about. If there is some model, credit rating model is there, which Mr. Labh was also talking about, without any bias. So one model we are trying to work together with and with all the MFIs and NBFCs also, where we have seen that there is some deep neuron technology, they are using psychometric tests, they are using economist things are. So all those things put together, which way we develop a model where such biases are taken care of, the risk assessment is better, probability of default, probability of income, and all those things. If that is there, if lenders get comfort, naturally lenders want to lend money. That is what we are.
Just show them the math and remove the, quantitative and, other subjective criteria.
And once this is done, then all the issue of confidence, mobility, if they have the money is power. If the ladies are given money, that power they will have, and all these things will be automatically taken care of.
Well, we're running out of time, so finally, Mr. Labh, I'll give you the last word. What are some of the lessons to be learned from other countries when it comes to hand-holding women entrepreneurs, supporting them, meeting their financial needs? What are some of the key takeaways that you have that perhaps you could share with the audience as well?
Well, I was not ready for that question, but anyway, I'll try to answer. So having worked, in many countries, including in many countries in Africa and all that. So I see that, these challenges that we find women facing out here in India, it's, very similar to the women face in, across the developing world, which is about, less opportunities at every stage, less opportunity with regard to gaining, opportunity for skill development, less opportunity to kind of interact with the peer network, which kind of from which you learn many things, and which also becomes a source of confidence, source of inspiration, and source of peer support. So, and wherever these kind of opportunities are created, where you have a network of for peer support, where you can engage, and you have kind of local, contextually identifiable role models that you can look up to. So that kind of works really well. And one thing is absolutely proven that let's say, and this comes from an example that the Google CEO Eric Schmidt quoted is that he was quoting about their when they're recruiting employees, they run an assessment and then they rate potential employees on their skill, and then a year later after recruitment they look at the actual performance review, and they found that women, when they were being interviewed and they were being rated at, on their skill, they were consistently being rated lower, but after getting hired after a year they were kind of outperforming. Which means that there was, some kind of big bias over there. And that showed the bias of the recruiters, right? Inherent bias, subconscious bias. So in that sense, how do you address those biases? So you have to have, more people, let's say, on the banking side, on the recruiter side, on the MFI, industry, so that, you kind of, address those biases. Also, one more thing is that the industry needs to continuously kind of innovate. That's one important point. Mr. Arup mentioned about many of the ideas that like nano enterprise kind of thing. So that innovation has to come from people sitting in this room, because they are working on different parts of the pie. What is important is that in addition to finance, let's say how she graduates from nano to larger enterprises, how she gets access to escort, other support services, those kind of stuff. So that's very critical. Recognition is very important. When a woman kind of gets recognition, and that we have seen in our Grameen Mitra model, is that when she gets recognition, from external people, then the barriers that she faces at home, those barriers kind of disappear.
With
we have
confidence,
seen exactly. So many of those things, but of course we are short of time, so yeah. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to quickly throw open the floor for any questions from the audience that our panelists here would be happy to take. Anyone, just raise your hands and we'll take the question. Yeah, please. Is there a mic? Oh, sure.
Hello, I'm Sudha Kothari from Chaitanya, and would like to understand from your experiences that it's not necessary it's either a women-led enterprise or a male-led, it could be a family business. So in that perspective, how do you go about it? Because gradually when the women who's leading it, when it expands, family members get involved into that. So how do you see that process?
Madam, did you mean women part of the family enterprises? Or?
No, women starting it and then it becomes a family enterprise. Because it's becoming rewarding, then other members of the family becoming part of it.
So that is very natural to happen, and I don't know what challenge we see there, but at the same time, related to this is a challenge all of us we are facing. SIDBI also we are trying to work on real women entrepreneur. Because even Google Bank's report is talking about that many women entrepreneurs, they are on paper owner, but not the real owner. So while we are trying to handle that, probably we will be collectively introducing some index for that to assess which agency is having how much real V out of its total women borrowers. But at the same time, when we graduate to upper, larger layer, there is no problem others joining and making it happening. And I think all lenders would find comfort in such a joint ownership and taking it forward. And that should not be seen as a dilution of women entrepreneurship or ownership in that. I don't know whether I could answer what you meant, or maybe some other person.
I think I just want to add that as the enterprise grows, it is natural that either family members or someone else joins so that to run the organization. As long as the organization structure, the liability, who is responsible for what and who is the real borrower, all those things are made clear and written down in a proper document. Even the bank loans will have these kind of clauses. I think it's fine as long as governance is intact.
Yeah, I just want to share some experiences from Nepal. We are right now doing gender and entrepreneurship training for women home-based workers who are becoming micro-entrepreneurs. And we are working with 600 of them, coaching them. And this is the biggest question, The moment the business starts becoming successful, everyone wants to jump in. And that's where the women loses the power. And the whole question is, how do we balance power equation within the homes? Who leads the business? Who gets the payment? Who decides the new products? All those gender dynamics and power relations come in, and not just within the home. What we are seeing is that it starts happening within the community as well. So community people want to come in and join, and this is where the whole issue of how do you build power, how do you empower women to enable decision making, and how the family and communities support women's empowerment process. Just to give one more example is that as the business grows, we have also seen violence against women also grows. So the issue of addressing gender-based violence and harassment related to the world of work is another thing which can hinder the women. And the question is, that's why I was mentioning that we need this coaching support, we need this peer support, much more softer side of capacity building is needed to handle these power relations within the community and home.
Thanks for that.
Very small point. I just want to be very, just
Sure,
give me like 30 seconds. So in addition to this, coaching and peer support, which is often targeted at the woman entrepreneur, it's equally important to also look at the places where the barrier is coming from. So household gender dialogue, and so that they don't become a barrier, but become a facilitator or enabler. So that's just.
The Get Ahead program that I mentioned actually looks at
Sure.
these
Thank you.
dynamics.
Your question, please.
Yes. Good afternoon to all of you. See, we as a woman, and we want to do something and want to encourage women to do something, so we start something. I have started something, but when we go to the banks, all the banks, they say, show me something where you have done for 2 years, 3 years. You have just started. I have to show something that I have done something for 2 years, and then only I'll be given some funds or help. So where do I go? How do I go about it? If I am facing this problem, there are many women who will be facing this problem. So how do we solve this?
No, surely, those are some of the reasons why we have schemes like Mudra and Yojana, because they look
Yeah.
at entrepreneurs who are starting businesses, but I'll let the
Okay, so-
panelists answer it, please.
So
I hope it's working, yeah. What you are facing at a somewhat individual enterprise level, that too probably at a higher level than microfinance, any male person also faces this. So this is not women specific. Understand the perspective of a lender. Lender is
men have dominated enough. Now it's the time for women.
So it's just this. It's nothing women specific. I must clarify this to you. But at the same time, times are changing. As a society, we have evolved. The stigma of failure is gone. 20, 30 years back, startups were not seen that good. Today, it's so times have changed, and equal opportunities for those having aspirations and ideas, trying to do something, whether men or women, they are now increasingly getting available.
And I would be very happy if all the banks and people who are here listen and tell, if women come to you, please help them.
Remove
It
the
will be a
bias.
great help to all the women, and today we are talking only about women, so
Okay.
it will be a
We
great
can,
help. Thank you so
take
much.
One final question. There's a lady there. Yeah.
Am I audible? Yeah. Sorry. My question is specifically to Bharti ji and then also to Prabhat ji. So my name is Rituja. I'm from Forbes Marshall. We are a CSR partner to many of these CBBOs, particularly community-led organizations. So I just wanted to understand from you whether there are any specific lessons with respect to rural nano entrepreneurs versus urban nano entrepreneurs. That is one question. And in addition to that, if there is, then did you employ any, specific strategies for both of these groups?
Thanks for that question, Rituja ji. Yes, of course, there are important distinctions when it comes to the economy, rural economy and urban economy. You have certain advantages in rural areas, but also lots of disadvantages. So, advantage being that, social ties and, people know you and you know people, which you can leverage for, growing your business and, finding your customers. Whereas in urban areas, you are kind of invisible, you are anonymous, and you don't have the access to those social networks. So that makes it difficult for, starting out, especially for women, because, for them that, they also have that, of course, the domestic, more of those domestic care responsibility as compared to rural areas where you may have access to some support because of joint family system. Now, having said that, the urban areas also gives you many opportunities, because you have access to infrastructure, digital platforms, a customer base or client base which is willing to buy many products and services. So opportunities are many more. Whereas in the rural areas, you are constrained by, okay, what kind of business I can do for which I will have customers over here. So there are these distinctions. And of course, in entrepreneurship development, I think one of the critical things that we do is that to do a kind of opportunity scanning of the geography where you live. What kind of businesses could be established, what kind of products and services could be out here in demand, and then you kind of, do opportunity counseling or guidance, business counseling around that. So that may be helpful. That's a small input I thought I'll share. But anything to add, Bharti?
Yeah, I mean, our experience also shows that there are some similarities, but there are some challenges which are different in both urban and rural. In rural setting, the caste and the exclusion factors are also very dominant. So who are the women entrepreneurs or who are getting financial access also depends on a lot of other factors apart from being a woman. And those intersectionality factors are more prominent in the rural areas than in the urban areas, except in the context of possibly migrants, which Prabhat just mentioned. The other thing, I mean, practically what we saw that when it's an urban setting, people are more concerned about the service or the product rather than who provides it. So those caste exclusions actually come down in the urban areas. But at the same time, the rural setting allows you to have much better networking and cushioning that happens, which is lost in the urban setting. So that becomes an issue.
All right, thank you for your thoughts. And let me thank all of the panelists. It's been wonderful speaking with all of you, Ms. Birla, Mr. Labh, Ms. Chunduru, Mr. Kumar, Mr. Kataria. And thank you for being a wonderful audience, and all the women who asked questions. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, everyone. With that, we conclude the session on opportunities and challenges for promoting financing and handholding of women enterprises. And we'd like to, of course, extend our heartfelt gratitude to Ms. Ritu Singh for a flawless moderation of this session, and to all of our panelists for sharing with us their thoughts and expertise. I'm going to request Mr. Gigi Mammon, ED and CEO Sa-Dhan, to please, on behalf of all of us here, present little mementos to each one of our panelists here, and request all of you to please give them a big hand. I'm going to request Mr. Mammon to present a memento first to Ms. Ritu Singh for a flawless moderation of this session. To Ms. Padmaja Chunduru. To Ms. Bharti Birla. Ms. Bharti Birla. One to Mr. Arup Kumar. Mr. Arup Kumar. Mr. Prabhat Labh. And also thank Mr. Jugal Kataria from Satin CreditCare Network Limited. Thank you, and I'll request everyone to please come together for a group photograph. And as we capture this moment, keep it with us forever. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to break for lunch now. Half an hour it is, 30 minutes only. In the interest of time, we can extend it to 40 max, but yeah, let's try and come back here by 1:45. The lunch is at the same area where the tea was being served. And please join us for lunch. During the lunchtime, feel free to pick up your copies of the Bharat Microfinance Report 2022. Thank you.